In this video I'm going to be showing you how to install a home irrigation system for your garden. In this example I've chosen a Hunter Hydrawise HC12 controller which can have up to 12 zones connected to it. If you choose a different brand like Gardena, the concept is exactly the same in the way you connect everything up, so you should be able to follow along in this video. Now this particular garden doesn't have enough water pressure to water the whole garden in one go, so we've had to break it down into 6 different zones. And I'm going to show you how to wire it up to this particular controller, how to do all the plumbing work which needs to go around your garden, and connect up little sprinklers and so on and so on. It's the first time I've installed a home irrigation system, and I'm making this video because I found it quite difficult to figure out what bits and pieces I needed to buy, and there weren't very many helpful videos I could find on the internet. Many of them are quite old or from the manufacturer, which aren't very clear. So I'm going to take you through this kind of step by step. It's quite easy to do once you figure out what bits you need. So if you'd like to install an irrigation system at home, these are pretty much all the different parts that you're going to need. So let me just walk my way through it. First of all, you're going to need a bit of pipe. This is 13mm LDPE pipe. It's the same size as a hose pipe. It's probably a bit stiffer and it doesn't kind of flex in the same way as a hose pipe, but it's kind of UV resistant and it will kind of survive kind of in your flower bed or around the edges a bit better than a regular hose pipe. So this is your main trunk, which is going to get water from your hose pipe all the way around your garden, and then you connect the various connectors I'll show you here to this. So I've got a few bits of pipe, but basically it comes on big reels depending how much you need. So that's step number 1. Then depending on the layout of your system, you might need to create branches off the main pipe. So this is a T connector, and what you do is you just kind of unravel one end like this, and you fit this end over here like so, and then you connect that pipe in there, and then you tighten it up, and then you repeat the same here, and then your kind of main trunk continues. And if you need a kind of a T-junction, a branch off, you do the same thing here and connect the pipes in. So this is basically a T connector. You can do it using push fit connections, but I prefer these threaded connections because it gives you a tighter seal with less water dripping out. Okay, but these are one of the connectors you're probably going to require in your system. When you get to the end of your branch, where you're not going to go any further, you might want to cap it off. So this plug here is a cap. It works in exactly the same way. So what you do is you put that over there, and this is simply a bung. You connect the two to here, you tighten it up, and it caps the water off so it won't go any further. Okay, if you ever need to drain your system, perhaps like in the winter to stop it freezing, you can open this cap up and the water will fall out of here at the end of your line. Okay, so that is the cap that you're likely going to need. When you want to branch off to actually have a water spout, you need one of these connectors. These are called barbed tees. So in the same way, what you do is you fit them like this. Once they go on, they're basically never coming off. It's quite a tight fit, so you might need to use a bit of fairy liquid just to help it kind of slide on. And I found that applying a bit of heat to this area makes it a bit more flexible, just so it gets on. You can use like a cooking blowtorch, or like a radiator, a bowl of hot water, or kind of just hover it over your kind of gas cooker for a few seconds, and it gets hot very quickly, and this will slide on all the way there in one go. Okay, that way it creates a tight seal. Then you repeat the process over here and put another 13mm LDPE on this side, and then you've got a tight seal. And then this is where you connect your 4mm pipe so that you can connect it to a sprinkler. Okay, this is called a barbed T. It comes in various sizes, so this particular one is 13mm because the hose that I've chosen for the main trunk is also 13mm. You've got to make sure you match up the sizes correctly, otherwise you're going to find it's quite hard work. All right, Once you've laid your pipe around your garden, your main trunk, you might find because it's quite stiff, it kind of bulges up and doesn't sit neatly. These stakes are available where you simply clip it to the pipe like so, and then you drive that into the soil, and then what it will do is hold this main branch wherever you want it to be, tucked out away neatly in your garden. Okay, that's pretty much everything you need to do with this big 13mm pipe. After that, we come on to the smaller pipe. So this is a reel of 4mm pipe specifically for the sprinklers. It's no different, it's just a bit more flexible, and what you can do is connect like so. If you push it all the way in, then it's again going to create a tight seal, and then this pipe you flex it wherever you need to and connect it to the sprinklers I'm about to show you. Okay, so there's a few different types of sprinkler that you can get. This particular one here is a 360 sprinkler. If you look at the end, you can see it's got kind of ridges all the way around. That means that it's kind of 360. This valve here is like an on-off valve, so you can control each sprinkler individually. You can also adjust the pressure so you get it kind of just right. It doesn't spray your fence or doesn't kind of spray onto your lawn. So these are quite good. This particular sprinkler, I fitted a barb to it. So this thing here is a barb, and what that enables you to do is connect it to the stake over there. Okay, you don't have to use that if you don't want to, but otherwise you're going to find it's quite hard to connect this to anything. So these sprinklers, this particular one's a 360. I've got a 180 down there as well. You can also get a 90 degrees one, and you can also get a winged one, which I'll show you in a second. Whatever you use, I've used these barbs. You just screw the two together like so, and once it's tight on, and then what happens is you connect the stake into this kind of groove over here, and you connect the 4mm pipe into there. So by way of an example, here's the 4mm pipe. What I would do is I push that together and connect it in there, and then here's one I made earlier. This is what it looks like when you're done. So here's the pipe connected in. This particular connector is a 90-degree connector. The way you can tell is that the size of the hole out there, the outlet, is about 90 degrees. It's a vari-jet, so you can adjust this valve. The wire is pushed on, the barb is already fitted. These are stakes. This is like a 310mm stake. So you basically push this into the ground, and then you attach the sprinkler on it, so it has height just over the size of a regular flower, and it can project the water across your flower bed. So to connect these two things together, all you do in the stake is you line it up like so, click it in, done. And then your pipe, your 4mm pipe, rides down the inside of the stake to ground level, and then it trails off and connects onto this T, which connects onto your main trunk. Okay, let's talk about the other connectors. So here is a 180 connector. Don't know how well you can see the size of the groove there. Okay, it's exactly the same concept. It's got an adjustable valve, it's got the barb connector. You can buy ones without the valve if you really don't want it and want to save a bit of money, but I find it's quite useful in adjusting the pressure and balancing the whole system out. So this is a 180, this is a 360, and this particular one here is a 90-degree one. Okay, I'll try and turn them around so you can see the difference. But apart from the size of the outlet, they are identical. There's one extra one to show you, and that's this. This is a winged outlet, and the reason being is it projects water from here this way, and it projects water from here this way in a straight line like that way and this way. No other water comes out. So this is called a winged inlet, a winged sprinkler. It connects in the same way. You fit this onto a barb, and then you fit the barb onto the T. Now this is not adjustable, this one, so this is going to project water out. In my case, it probably projects water about 2 meters in either direction, but it depends on the strength of it depends on the pressure in your system. Okay, apart from that, the other bits to show you are these. So these are drip connectors. So if you have potted plants that you want to water, of course your sprinkler may not get to it wherever it's located, or it might provide too much water and it starts dripping underneath. So what you can use are these winged connectors. So this particular one in my right hand is an end of line connector. So your 4mm pipe connects into here, it drips, but then that's the end of the line, there's no other branch. This one in my left hand, this is an inline connector. It does the same thing, but you can connect it in between the line and have a few of them together. So your 4mm connector goes in there, and then you put another 4mm connector here and connect it to either the end of line or yet another one of these, however many you need in a line. Okay, they are adjustable, so you can twist it like this to adjust the rate of the drip. If you close it clockwise, it will slow it down. If you open it up anti-clockwise, it speeds up. Same thing with the end of line one, you adjust it like this. Okay, so those are the two drip connectors that you can use. There's many other connectors available in the system, but this is what I've chosen for mine. For your 4mm pipe, if you need to get round corners, this is a 90-degree elbow that you can use. The pipe is quite flexible, but if you want to do a neat job or you've got a tight corner to get around, you can use a 90-degree connector like that. There's also a T connector like this in case you need to branch off with your 4mm pipe. Works in the same way, you just push the 4mm pipe on each of the T's and then you've got an additional connection there. If I start from the beginning, you need to have a water tap in your garden. Connect this thing, which is your regular hose pipe connector, to the tap, and then fit your hose pipe to one of these connectors. And hose pipes can connect to this 13mm tube. It's exactly the same thing. So just like you would sort it out for a hose pipe, you put it on like that, you push that in place like so, and you tighten this up. Okay, and then you can connect this to your tap connector like so, and that's how you get water to flow down this pipe. Now if you've got multiple zones, what you need to do is take your water coming out of your tap and split it into the multiple zones controlled by zone valves. So what we need for that is a manifold. So it sounds complicated, but I'll show you. It's very basic plumbing. As you're installing your 13mm pipe, you're going to need to make cuts in it, and so I would use a regular pair of garden clippers, which are nice and sharp, to make a clean cut over here. It's important that your cut is straight and not like at 45 degrees or any kind of angle, because when you fit it to the connectors, if it's straight, the plastic tube will get all the way to the end. If it's at an angle, then some of it will reach the end, some of it won't, and that's how you get some leaks. So use a sharp pair and cut it nice and straight. One learning that I've made when I did my garden, I measured it out and I thought that I needed about 75 to 80 meters in total of this 13mm pipe in order to do the whole job. Once I've done it all, what I've actually found is I needed 225 meters. And that was me miscalculating because every zone can only handle a certain number of sprinklers and drips. After that, you've got to create a separate zone because you're going to run out of water pressure. So in my particular garden, I've split it into 6 zones. And so once you kind of get to the end of the zone, then this 13mm pipe has to just travel all the way back to wherever you've located your zone valves. So there's no connectors on it. So of course it's passing, in my case, it's passing the same route straight past another zone. So I've doubled up on the amount of pipe that I need. And the layout of my garden means I've actually quadrupled and gone 5 times on the amount of pipe that I need because of the way I've had to route all of this to get back to where I've located the manifold. Just keep that in mind. You're probably going to need a lot more pipe than you think. The same thing went with the 4mm pipe. I bought 50 meters and this is now my 3rd reel, so I've got 150 meters of this stuff. I haven't quite finished connecting up all the little potted plants, but I'll probably use up most of this reel by the time I'm done. In terms of these stakes, I bought 50 of them. In terms of these little connectors on the top, I have bought, I think, about 75 of the 180 ones. I found that the 180 ones are the best in terms of their reach and their range. I found that the 360 ones are not very good at all. They just don't seem to have much pressure and struggle to kind of get a range of more than about 1 meter away from wherever you locate this valve. Whereas the 180 can travel about 2 meters, which is much better. The 90 is not so bad. The 90 can do about 1.5 meters. It's in between. Okay, the winged one, as I said, this can travel about 2 meters in each direction from wherever you locate that, so that's pretty good. The drips, when you open the valve up completely, it's going to drip out way more water than you're actually going to need. So don't be concerned that it's not going to provide enough water to your potted plants. It's got ample in there. The final bit that I haven't mentioned, which you can see in this, is this. This is an end cap for your manifold. So when I get to the manifold bit, I'll show you where I've used all these different parts and how I've put it together. Okay, the first thing we need to do is connect up the hose to the tap. So here's our tap. Here's our hose pipe that we're going to be using. I got a brand new connector here, a tap connector, rather than recycling an old one I might have had lying around in the garden, just to make sure I can get a nice and tight seal on here and avoid water dripping. I did test this out with an old one that I had lying around, and I found that it was leaking. So I would recommend not recycling any of these connectors. Okay, so that's on tight, and then I simply connect it on there. Now the other end of this hose goes to my manifold. So let me move around there and I'll show you what it looks like. So in this installation, we've made a little house for the manifold and the electrics to live in, which is all underneath here. So I'm just going to slide the roof off, and then we can take a look at how it's all plumbed in underneath. Okay, here I am at the other side where I've installed the manifold. So this is what the whole thing looks like. I know it looks crazy and scary, but it's really quite simple. So let me just explain what you see here. This and this is the manifold. All it is like a distribution thing where it takes the water which comes in via your hose pipe, connects it onto this tap connector here, and it distributes it along these two branches. And on each branch I've got three zone valves. So that's how I get to 6. That's all this thing does. It's simply like Lego. Okay, so this is the other end of that same hose pipe I just showed you. Connect a tap connector on there just the same. You can buy these manifolds. I got it from the same shop that I got all the other parts from. So it's a simple tap connector that you would use to connect your hose pipe to. You get one of these, fit it onto the end. I believe this is a 1-inch diameter. It's all kind of standard stuff, and you connect your hose pipe onto there. Okay, so now you're going to get water to flow down these branches. Over here at this end, I've put a stopper because I'm not connecting this end of the manifold to anything else. If you wanted to have an even bigger zone, say go from 6 to 12 or something, you could create more branches by connecting off here. Okay, then separately I bought 2 more branches of 3. So I've got the main branch of 2, and that opens me up into 2 more branches of 3, and that's how I get to the 6. So I simply buy one of these, connect it on here, repeat the same, connect it here. These things here, these are the zone valves. Okay, so each of them are connected to that 13mm black pipe, and they go off around my garden to different zones. Out of each solenoid comes 2 wires. Okay, and this is basically positive and negative, and it all goes off into this junction box, and I'll show you what's going on in there and how it's all connected up. Other than that, it's all the same. I repeat the same thing on both sides. Make sure when you buy these bits that you screw everything together very tightly to avoid drips. You might need to use a spanner to get a real tight fit on this. They do provide you some washers when you buy it all. We've got a spare one here that you can put in there to help keep it sealed. I bought a Wago box, which is waterproof, and I ran all the wiring through here to keep it. I mean, it's under this roof that we've got, but it stops any water from getting in there and kind of messing around with the electrics. Okay, remember, if you're going to do this, you need to make sure that you call an electrician to do this kind of work for you, or use a competent person. Whilst this is only low voltage, 24 volts, it's still electricity right next to water. So I'm not advising you to do any of this yourself. You should call a competent person. But that's basically how you connect it together. I'm going to move the camera lower down now so you can see what it looks like at the bottom. See, so we've got hose pipes connected to the black LDPE pipe which goes around the garden. So it's in the same way. You fit a normal tap connector here, and then you've got up here at the top the normal hose pipe tap connector that I just showed you, and then the last bit, which is here, this is the thread from the zone valve. Okay, so this is the tap connector, this is the yellow one that I showed you in the other example, and then this is the actual zone valve. So this is how it's all connected up. I use some electrical tape just to wrap around each of those pipes so I know which zone each of these are going to, because once you bring all the pipes together on the floor, it's a jungle like that and it's hard to tell. Once I got them all together, I cable tied them just to try and keep it neat. The corrugated flexible pipe is where the electric cable runs through. So I've brought that up on the other side. But this is how it's connected together at the bottom. It's basically the same thing repeated 6 times. If I bring it up and try and get you a different angle in here, let's see how well you can see this. This is the same thing from the top looking down. So there's the black hose pipe going down for my first zone. Here's the tap connector. Let's see if I can undo this. There you go. So you can see it's the normal hose pipe tap connector, nothing special about it. It screws on. Okay. There we go. And then looking around over here, you can see all the different angles of what's going on. Okay, it's really simple to connect together. All this stuff just kind of screws, not even screws, it just twists tight, so it's quite easy to put this all together. You've just got to make sure you do it up tight, so you might need a spanner. If you don't do it up tight, you're going to find that it drips in different places. As an example of what some of the connections look like, I've pulled one up just so I can show you in this video. So this branch here is my main 13mm branch, which comes from one of my zones. And what I've done here is I've cut the pipe and I've installed a 13mm barbed T, which is this. And what that does is it takes the connection from 13mm diameter down to this, which is the 4mm diameter. Okay, this particular connection is at the end of my branch, so I've put a stopper here on the end so water can't leak out and it doesn't go any further. And then from here I've got a 4mm pipe which is connected to some plant pots. So the first thing I've done here is I've installed a valve so I can turn off the water flowing down these pipes if I want to switch it all off, if I remove these pots for example, and that way I don't have to disconnect anything. Then what I've done is I've installed a T connection here, so one goes off to some pots on my left and others to my right. And then all that happens is here is the flexible cable and it goes into a pot, and in this case I've got an inline drip which connects to another inline drip, which connects to another inline drip, which is there, which connects to another inline drip, and this goes round through 4 more pots and it ends on an end of line drip. On the other side of the branch I put an elbow connector to get this pipe to come straight up. Once we fit it properly we're going to tack this to the wall nice and neat. But that comes up here, there's another elbow connector there, another elbow connector there, and then afterwards you can see I've got an inline drip there, an inline drip there, and an end of line drip over there. But that's simply how you connect up drips to do plant pots. And as I said, you can adjust this grey wing nut here, which will control the speed of the drip. At the end of the line you turn this black nut over here and it will control the speed of the drip. You can, regardless of that, you can still use this valve to turn the whole thing on and off if you want to. Moving further around the back of the garden, I'm making this video in areas where the pipework is exposed, so it's easy to show you. Of course, most of it's covered up in areas that you can't see. Anyway, here's the blue zone again. You can see that I've got a couple of barbed connection in there with the thin 4mm pipes coming off. One of them works its way through the flower bed and ends up over here to this emitter, which is a 180. And then over here in the middle, on a stake, I have installed a 361 which gets this whole kind of Jurassic Park kind of area of our garden with water, which is perfect. As I move further around the garden, you can see the trunking at the back over there. So I've got 3 branches of water running along the back there, and you can see that I've got a T-junction again on the what looks like the white zone, and that 13mm pipe trails down here into the middle of the flower bed, and then from there I've got a valve which controls the water which goes up to a flower basket, and I've got another emitter hiding just there. Okay, so I've put them on stakes. We haven't quite decided if this is the final position of where everything's going to be, but for now this is how we've done it. So I continue to work my way around the garden. Here's another emitter here. We've got a bit of excess pipe coiled up there that we haven't finished, because what we need to do is install drips into this nursery over here. Here's another stake in the ground with a 360 emitter, and another one just over there, which has a range big enough to get this entire flower bed that you see over here. Okay, I've done the usual connections by putting T-junctions at the back over there. Like I said, you don't have to. If you prefer to make it look neater and simpler, you can put the barbed T, which changes your main branch into that 4mm branch right at the back on the main cable. You don't have to do a little T-junction and then do it. I just did that because I thought that made more sense. I didn't want to have so many connections in the main branch, but actually it's all the same thing in the end. But this is the first time I've done this, and there were very few videos around to help me out. There's another emitter that I've put. It's a 360 on a stake. At the back over there I've got my cables running. There's another 360 on a stake there. Down here on the floor I've got a 180. Don't know how well you can see that, kind of camouflaged there, and that gets this whole flower bed. I've got another one over here. This is a 180. Now you can see the cable trailing across the middle of the flower bed here. So we are going to think of a new way of doing this to hide the cable so it's a bit more invisible. But otherwise it works really well, and that one emitter can do this whole section comfortably. If I show you some pots, so this whole zone that you see over here is connected together. So we've got those 2 180 emitters there. There's some more on the other side at the back pointing forward. What we figured out is the best way to organise this is if you have some at the front of your garden by your lawn facing backwards into your flower bed, but then also have some at the back of your flower bed pointing forward. This way you get a proper coverage without any sections missed. On the same zone, I've got these pots over here, and I've got drip emitters plugged in there. So there's the end of line one. Here is a inline one. There's another inline one there. It goes through all of these pots that you see here. There's another inline one there. There's an end of line one there. And then somewhere over here, I created a T-junction, and then I've got it branching off. And down there, you should see the main trunk. I'm going to sketch out what the schematic looks like for this irrigation install. So there's kind of 2 portions to it. One is the kind of plumbing portion, and the second is the electrical portion. So I haven't kind of tried this diagram in advance. I don't know what it's going to look like, but let's see. Okay, my symbols might not be perfect, but hopefully you'll follow along. So first of all, let's start up here on the top left. You're going to have your kind of main water pipe coming in to your garden. Okay, so you need a garden tap, and if I kind of draw something like this, and you're going to have off here some sort of valve. Okay, there's my drawing of my garden tap. From that you need to connect the little adapter thing, the little spout, which screws onto your garden tap, and then to that what you need to do is connect a hose pipe. Okay, so here's my attempt at drawing my hose pipe adapter. Okay, here comes my hose pipe. Now this hose pipe goes into your manifold. The purpose of the manifold is if you need more than one zone, what this is going to do is split your single water supply into multiple water supplies, and then you're going to have a zone valve which turns each of those zones on and off. Okay, if you don't have multiple zones, you have a single zone, then you don't need this. You just need to connect this to a single zone valve and you're away. Okay, so anyway, in my case, this goes into a manifold, and I have 6 zones on my manifold. So if you imagine this hose pipe is a bit longer, so then I'm going to get to my manifold, and I have like a little knot thing that you draw up here where you connect the manifold, and then I have kind of a branch of the manifold like this, and at the end of my manifold I have a stop nut. Okay, so this is my attempt at drawing a stopper, okay, where the water can't get past it anymore. Then on my manifold I have 2 branches. So one branch comes off, let's say like that, and both of my branches are the same. Okay, so I have a stopper over here as well to stop the water from getting out. So over here, my hose pipe, I have a repeat of the little adapter thing, and I have a repeat of the hose pipe connector. Okay, so the thing that I've got over here, I've got a repeat of it here as the entry into my manifold. Now my manifold, I have 2 branches. Each branch has 3 valves on it, and I have them both running in parallel. But just to make this diagram look a bit neater, I'm going to space it out. So my first zone looks like that, and my second zone, I'm just going to extend it out to look like this. Okay, and it has a stopper on the end of it so water can't leak out. And then what I have is 3 zones on each branch of my manifold, right? So I've got these connected, this kind of is part of the mold. This all connects to the main pipe as you buy it from the shop. And then what I've got over here is I've got like a nut thing that you do up. Okay. Okay. Now from each of these, I have my zone valve. So the zone valve looks a bit like this. It's a circular thing, a bit like that. Okay. Okay. And then from my zone valve, it has another outlet built into it like this. What I fit is another one of these hose pipe connectors that you see over here, okay, like you would connect it to a tap. So it has a 1-inch fitting, and it has the little spout like that. Okay, and then to that, what you do is you fit your normal hose pipe connector again. So it goes like this, and it's like that. I know my drawing is not the best. And then from each of these now comes your black 13mm LDPE pipe, which goes off to each of your zones. Okay, so this is how you get from your single water tap. You have a hose pipe connector, a bit of hose, another hose pipe connector at the beginning of the manifold. Then you've got your manifold. Now you might only need one branch because you just have 3 zones. You might need even more branches because you have more than 6. It doesn't matter, the concept is the same thing. You can keep on adding branches onto this to meet your needs. You can get another branch of 2, fit it on here, and then you can have 4 trunks coming off it with 3 valves each. 4 threes, that gets you the 12 zones. So from your hose pipe connector now, this goes round to, you know, each of your zones. So let's put that over there at the end. Okay, this is supposed to be my hose pipe, my black hose pipe, the UV resistant one. Here's another one, comes to this zone. Okay, you get the idea. All of them have the same thing. I'm not going to draw them all on because this is going to look messy. Okay, now let me talk about how to, I'm going to change pen. Let me talk about how to connect up each of these zones. So let's take this one. Still, well, we're off to a good start. Let's take this one. Okay, this is still the same black LDPE pipe. And let's say you've got a flower bed over here that you want to do. So I'm going to create a T. Okay, if you remember, I showed you a T connector, and so I'm going to fit a T connector like that. So now I have a branch coming off. Okay, so my T connector, it looks a bit like this. Okay, so I've got my T connector, and then I'm going to fit a barb. So my barb goes in line. Okay, it's my barbed T, and then what it has is a tiny little 4mm spout like that, and that's where you connect your 4mm pipe. This is the end of my branch, so I'm going to put a stopper over here, right, to stop the water flowing out, and that's the end of the line. And let's say your main branch continues some more, and you may have another T, right, like that, or you have another branch for a different section of your garden that you want to water. Okay, so from this you then have your 4mm thin pipe which comes out, and to the end of that you connect it to a stake in the ground. You have the little barb, and then you put one of those sprinklers on the top, whether it's the 360, 180, whatever you need. Okay, if you really wanted to, you can create a T-junction on the thin pipe, right? Remember I showed you those connectors, so you can make a T-junction. So this goes off here, and then the same thing happens again. You can connect it to a barb, and you can have another sprinkler like that. It's your choice whether you want to have a T-junction on the small 4mm pipe, or you just want to have your T-junctions on the main 13mm pipe. It works both ways. I guess the question is convenience and pressure. Okay, in my system I've created these 13mm T-junctions with the thick pipe, and then from that I've connected 2 or 3 of these sprinklers. That helps me get the pressure that I want around the system. And then you can do the same thing again. Maybe this branch is going to be connected to some pots, so you're going to have a you're going to have the barb in between, but it's connected to the thin, this is the barb T, the 13mm barb T. You're going to have your pipe, but this time it's connected to the little drip connectors. So let's say I've got, it kind of looks like that, the drip connector, and I've got another one like that, and I've got another one which is my end of line connector, right? And I'll draw something like that. Those dots represent the drip. Okay, so you get the idea. So this is all off. This is connected to zone 2, right, in my example. Let me number this. This is like zone 2, this is zone 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so basically when the system turns on zone 2, this sprinkler, and these drips are all going to get water. Now if you want, what you can also do is you can put mini valves onto each of these branches to help you turn them off. Let's say you don't have pots at the moment in this section, so you don't want water to come out of these. Now each of these inline drips have got a little valve on it which you can turn to turn off the water, or alternatively what we've done is we've put like an inline valve here, and that can control the water as well. So you might not want to go to each of these drips because it takes ages to kind of fine tune them and get the level of drip correct, and you might have quite a few lined up. It might be easier just to switch off a single valve like that. Okay, but this is basically how you build up your system. There's a stopper on the end there. Now if I switch colors, and let's talk about the electrics. So from each valve there's 2 wires, right? So I'm going to use my green and red pen to help you distinguish the 2 different colors. So let's okay, there's my positives coming off. Okay, now the red pen is my negatives, right? So I'm connecting all my negatives together and making it all one, okay, to complete a circuit. So there's all my negatives connected together. Then I had a terminal block, right? So here's my terminal block, and I had 6. I had 6 sections like that, and then I had a separate Wago clip in my connection, and then I had a further terminal block. Okay, so this is how it gets wired up. Your positive from zone 1 connects into there. Your positive from zone 2 connects to there. Your positive from zone 3 connects to there. Your positive, from zone 4 connects to there. Your positive from zone 5 connects to there, and your positive from zone 6 connects to there. Okay, then your negative wires, the red, mine went into this Wago block. Now you don't need to use this Wago block, but because you've got so many wires you need to get them all together somehow. So what I did is all these wires cross. I put 3 wires into the first one, then I put 3 wires into the second one, and then out of the last one I did this, connected it into there. Now if you have different sized terminal blocks you can skip out this step and connect all 6 wires into this one connection, but I wanted to make sure there was a good connection, so I did it this way. Okay, this is a Wago clip, and all it does is combine the circuit for every wire that's connected in here and makes it all one. Okay, this is a Wago. This is a terminal strip, and this is a terminal. Okay, excuse my writing. Now, hopefully this makes sense. Then what we have is, if I change color, we have my alarm wire. So okay, here are the 6 strands in my alarm wire, and here's my 7th strand in my alarm wire, and in my alarm wire I have another one which is spare, not doing anything. Okay, so if I draw if you imagine this is the sheath of my alarm cable, okay, and this is my not to scale alarm cable which goes off to my controller. So now if we look at my Hydrawise controller, the controller looks a bit like, controller looks like that. And what we have over here is we have 24, then we have sensor, Okay, this is the circuit inside the controller. Okay, so the controller's got a screen over here like so, and then I've removed the cover, and these are where you connect up the wires. So first of all, you have the main power supply, which you plug into your 3-pin plug. The positive and the negative connect there. Okay, then from your alarm cable, so this comes around to here, okay, with all the cores inside it. What I'm going to do is the negative, this one here, in this single terminal, this strand, I'm going to connect it into common. Okay, then the strand which came out of zone 1 over here, this wire, this green one, okay, I'm going to connect that into 1. The strand which came out of 2, I'm going to connect it into 2. You get the drift, right? Now I ran out of space, but I have 12 zones on my controller, but if you've got the 6-zone controller, it looks like this. All right, so the positive wire, 1 from each zone controller, goes to each terminal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for however many zones you have. The negative wire coming from each controller can be grouped together, like I've done here, and it needs to be wired into the common. It doesn't matter which common you use. That's it. Now if you choose to have a rain sensor, then you would wire the positive into either sensor 1 or sensor 2, and you would wire the negative into common. Okay, that's an optional additional piece of equipment you don't have to have. But put really simply, this is what the diagram looks like. I know this is not the nicest of pictures, but hopefully you see how the whole thing connects together. It looks ugly, but it's actually quite simple. It's like kind of putting Lego together, really, okay, in the plumbing world. So hopefully you find this helpful in explaining how it all comes together and how the electrics and the pipework mix. Remember, this is electric, so you need to make sure that this is left in a waterproof box. This particular Hydrawise controller is not waterproof, so it needs to be mounted indoors, like in a shed or inside your house or something. As you're thinking about where to locate the controller, you need 2 considerations. 1, you need power, so you need a plug socket. If you've got an outdoor plug socket, it can be located near to that. If you don't, then it needs to be installed inside, or you need to get an outdoor power socket installed by an electrician. The second thing from that is that you need to decide where this manifold system is going to live. As I showed you, it takes a little bit of space, and you need to have a water supply which can get to this, but also this alarm cable that you've got, which the alarm cable is no thicker than this pen, by the way, and it's very flexible, needs to get from your controller all the way to wherever you keep the manifold, because it has to be hardwired to each one of these zone valves. Now in my case, in our garden, we have a shed. The shed has power, and so I've got this plugged into a power outlet in the shed, and I run this alarm cable along the ceiling of the shed, out of the back of the shed, and then just adjacent to that is where this whole manifold system lives. So I've only had to run this alarm cable for probably 6 meters. Okay, now you could choose to put this controller indoors because you don't have an outdoor power point. That's okay, and then what you end up with is a really long alarm cable which runs along the outside of your house somewhere until it reaches wherever you're going to keep the manifold system. The manifold system, to give you an idea, for my 6 valves, the way I configured it, it was probably the size of this table. So we're talking about roughly, it's an A3 piece of paper. I would say it takes up that kind of size, and you need it to be quite deep because the cable, the hose, that black hose is not very flexible, and so you need space for it to naturally bend. We mounted it about 1 meter high so that when you need to do maintenance and fiddle with things, you're not bending over and bending your back, and that leaves enough space for these cables. I've drawn my diagram the other way around, but in my case the cables come out on the bottom of the manifold rather than the top. So let's have a look and figure out how to wire up all of these zones. So as I said, each zone valve over here has 2 wires coming out of it. One's positive, one's negative. They're not labelled, but it doesn't really matter which way around you connect this up. The system figures itself out completely. So what I've done is I've taken 1 wire from each of these. In fact, I've taken all the wires from each of these and pushed it through. But what I did is, just for my own sanity, I've taken the left wire out of each of these. So using the sticker as my orientation, I've taken the left wire and I've decided to call that negative, and then I've used the other one and used that as positive. Simple as that. It doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as you have your own system. So everything pushes through into the Wago box. It comes with rubber grommets like that, and I've just used a screwdriver to pierce a hole and then pushed each wire through individually so that the seal is as tight as possible. Even though it's under this shelter, you just want to be extra sure. So if I take the lid off and show you what I've done inside. Again, it looks crazy complicated, but don't worry. So, first of all, you've got 6 zones. So 6 bits of wire need to go to the controller individually so the controller can turn them all on and off. Okay, so that's the positive wire. The negative wire is just to complete the circuit. So you can join them all together and then just send one wire as a negative wire from here to wherever you've located the controller. Okay, that is all I've done. So if you look at this bit here on the top, this kind of strip, I've got 6 red wires coming in from each of my zone valves, and I've connected them to an individual socket here. And then the thin wire coming off the back here is actually 8-core alarm cable, low voltage alarm cable. That's what they recommend to use, and I have connected one into each of these, making note of what colors, so at the other end when I connect it to the controller I can get the zones correct. Okay, so all the positive wires are going into this. The negative wires are hidden away underneath, so you can see that all the red ones are coming in here where I've put this earth tape around it. This particular Wago box came with this Wago junction box, so what I've done is in bunches of 3, I've put 3 of the negative wires into there, 3 of the negative wires into there to join it all together, and then in the last one I've created a loop with a little bit of cable into one of these terminal blocks, and then from that same 8-core wire I've used a yellow strand here, which is going to be the negative, and send that off to the controller. It's simple as that. Okay, so really all there is there's 12 wires coming from the zone valves, 2 each. Okay, I've got 6 valves, that's 12 wires. I have taken the 6 positive ones and connected them individually into this terminal strip. And then from the alarm wire that I've got, which runs all the way to my controller, which is inside the shed, I've individually connected a different strand to each of those. Okay, because this wire that comes with the zone valve is only about ½ meter long, so I need to extend it. Then all the negative wires are connected to a 7th wire, which comes from my alarm cable, and I've used this Wago junction box here just to take the 7 strands and turn it into one using this blue loop, and then from there it goes into this yellow strand and down the same core. You can see here this is my alarm cable, and all the strands disappear into there. The green one that's looped around is the 8th one because it's an 8-core cable which is not in use. Okay, I can use that at a future date if I wanted to add in an extra zone. And that's it. And then the black cable you see here is the alarm cable, which disappears off down here, and it's inside this flexible conduit, and it goes all the way around inside my shed. This is the Hunter Hydrawise HC12 irrigation controller. So first of all, I've turned it off at the mains, and to get to the wiring terminals you need to remove this blue plastic cover on the side. So all you do to release it is along the side over there, you just put your fingers and pinch it out and it comes off. It's simply clipped in place by these little clips. There's no tools required to get it off. Okay, so once you've got it off, this is what it looks like. All right, so this cable here is the mains cable. It's got a 3-pin plug on the end. It's got an adapter which we've velcroed to the wall there, and it connects up into the 24-volt terminal there. There's 2 strands. It doesn't matter which way around you connect it up, the system sorts itself out. The next section here in blue is where you would install sensors. So if you choose to get a rain sensor in your installation, you would wire the positive end into sensor 1 or sensor 2, and the negatives go in common. And for your zone valves, you connect the positive into zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many you have, and you put the negative into common. Whether you use common in the green section or the blue section doesn't matter, it's all the same thing. Okay, so if I remove this wire from the equation, then this is the 8-core alarm cable that I bought, and the other end of this is connected to the zone valves. Okay, on the end I put ferrules because the strands are really fine, just to stop them breaking, and so I could connect do up the terminals really tight. I installed little ferrules on there just as an extra thing. You don't have to do it, but this particular cable, although it was recommended as the one to use, I find that the strands are way too thin. In hindsight, I would want to buy a thicker cable, similar to the cable that the zone valves come with, but it's not completely necessary. Okay, but that's literally all you have to do to wire this up. After that, you can turn the system on, and all the configuration is done either via the controller here, or in my case I found it easier to do it via the app. So I've powered it up, the light comes on at the top, it takes a few seconds to boot up, and then you're ready to roll. So if I quickly show you the menus, it's really simple and it's intuitive. I'm not going to go through it all because you can press the buttons, you can't break the system. If I go into zones, I've got each of my zones configured here. I can click on them, I can press run, choose how many minutes I want it to run for, and that's it. It starts watering your garden. Okay, and then you can manually stop it if you want to. So that's how the zones work. I've got 6 zones configured. On the next page they're all grayed out because they're not in use. If I go to the settings tab, over here you can configure your Wi-Fi. You can tell the controller what to do if it doesn't have a Wi-Fi signal, and you can configure other settings. You can even run the setup wizard to get this thing going first and foremost. And then you can go to the status tab here, which is going to tell you if the controller is connected, if the sensors are working, if you're connected to your Wi-Fi. You can even do a zone tester, which turns on all the zones one by one and runs it for 2 minutes, just so you can check all the connections are working, all of your sprinklers are working as you intended. But that's really it. It's really quite simple to set up. So if you're choosing to get an irrigation system in your garden, you need a controller similar to this. There's other brands out there, but I chose to go with Hunter because a family member already had this and it just worked. And so tried and tested was my solution. Gardena do an equivalent controller for a similarish price as well, if you wanted to go with a different brand. But this is the kind of entry-level controller. It's designed really for residential use. The actual controller is not waterproof, so this needs to be mounted indoors. If you go for any of Hydrawise's more premium controllers, then they come in a waterproof box, so you could mount it outside and you can get kind of 32, 64 zones going if you really want. But this is the one really for residential use. I expected that my garden would only need 6 zones, but I've bought the one with 12 zones because it's only like £20 difference in price, and we may determine that we don't have enough water pressure, and so we need to break our garden down into even more zones, and we may want to add on sprinklers to do the lawn later on. So I've got expansion capacity already in this one controller.